Hey there, I'm Meg Wheeler, and I'm a candidate for the Massachusetts State Senate in the Plymouth and Norfolk District, and I'm here today to give you a recap of what happened in the Massachusetts State Senate last week. So first let's talk about what was new last week. Well, both the State Senate and the House put forward a measure that we expect to actually be passed on Monday to give cities and towns the ability to postpone their municipal elections. So given the coronavirus pandemic, there's been some concern from a lot of towns that were expecting to have elections perhaps at the end of March, perhaps in April into May, that they will be unable to have those elections due to the spread of this pandemic. And so both the Senate and the House are working to put the guidelines in place for the towns to be able to move those elections. Now, currently, the only way to move the date of a municipal election is actually to seek a court order, which, as you, I'm sure, can imagine, if every town had to go do that, that would be quite a lot of administrative burden. So Senate President Karen Spilka issued a statement saying that the Senate and the House would take action separately on Monday in order to postpone, currently 2 Senate and 2 House special elections. So the Senate is specifically looking to postpone elections that were scheduled for March 31st. So there were 2 elections to replace former senators that were supposed to take place at the end of this month. And now the House special elections are also on the calendar for March 31st, and those are to elect 2 representatives. So why is this important? Well, understandably, we want to make sure that any elections that happen are safe and are not putting citizens at risk who are going out to vote. We also want to make sure that the elections are actually able to happen and that people aren't forced to choose between their health and their safety or participating in an election. So traditional elections at this time would put our voters, the election workers, volunteers, and really anyone who's out and about in our cities and towns at excessive risk to getting the coronavirus. The indication that we're hearing is that this will be a unanimous vote, that both Democrats and Republicans are supporting this measure. The only open question here really is just when the elections will actually be held. And so that is the unknown at this point. Okay, now let's talk about what's changed. So Governor Baker put forward several bills in response to COVID-19, to the coronavirus pandemic this week. The one we're going to talk about specifically today would actually expand individuals' abilities to claim unemployment benefits more quickly. So it waives that 1 week period. It gives municipalities more flexibility in areas like meetings and budgeting. So if you're not aware, right now is really budget season for all of our towns. I sit on the Cohasset Advisory Committee, and we were knee deep in reviewing budgets in preparation for our town meeting in May. So this bill gives municipalities more flexibility in how to handle those things. And it also designates September 14th, 2020 a legal holiday. That would be to support the rescheduled Boston Marathon, which normally takes place in April. So this would allow town moderators, in consultation with their local board of selectmen, to postpone town meetings for up to 30 days. And the select board could push the meeting beyond June 30th, which right now is currently the deadline per state law. Towns would also be able to reduce quorum requirements, so the number of people that are required to be present at these meetings in order for votes to happen, so that they could conduct the most pressing town business. And town leaders would also be able to extend budgets on a month-to-month basis based at prior year spending levels if they are unable to complete their new fiscal year 2021 budgets in time. So the unemployment bill, this is the one that waives that 1 week waiting period, passed quickly through both the Senate and the House last Wednesday and went to Governor Baker's desk to be signed into law. Unemployment really took the spotlight this week, and most of the focus on the legislature was to make sure this was passed quickly, understandably, because there are a lot of workers who are in very difficult positions right now, who are struggling because of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, of the 3 bills that Baker proposed, only the unemployment waiting period bill was passed at this time. The committees that received Baker's bills regarding the budgeting flexibility, as well as the creation of the September 14th holiday for the delayed Boston Marathon, Those committees have been soliciting feedback in writing since public hearings are no longer an option. So if you do want to provide any feedback on either one of those bills, you can email or call the legislative offices. So the public no longer has access to the State House because of this pandemic. So really virtually via email or phone calls is the best way to get into contact. It is unclear at this time how the legislature plans to handle any new emergency bills filed in response to this outbreak, given that legislative offices are limited. They're limiting personnel that are actually allowed to be in the building. And the Speaker and the Senate President instructed committee chairs to postpone or reschedule public hearings. So I suspect that the only things we're going to be hearing about in the next few weeks at a minimum are things related to COVID-19, and hopefully they're at least able to conduct that business. So let's just talk really briefly about why the piece of this bill that did get passed, the unemployment waiting period waiver, is important. So prior to this bill, there was a 1-week waiting period before receiving unemployment. So this bill directs the director of the Massachusetts Department of Unemployment Assistance to waive that 1-week period for unemployment benefits. This allows them to immediately begin paying out benefits to those who are otherwise eligible and have become unemployed because of the COVID-19 outbreak or the resulting state of emergency. This does include workers who become unemployed due to layoffs or business shutdowns, quarantine orders or directives, illness that prevents them from leaving their homes, the need to care for sick or quarantined family members, and the need to attend to children who are at home due to school closures. So this legislation is set to expire 90 days after the termination of the state of emergency, but I think this will be very helpful for a lot of folks. Okay, so lastly, something to look out for maybe is the state's fiscal 2021 budget. The fiscal year starts on July 1st. The House was supposed to produce and debate its version of Governor Baker's nearly $45 billion spending bill late next month. Obviously, that no longer seems possible at this point.